President, Section 3 and Section 4, the member for the Senator Stanislaus went into great detail and outlined what the functions of the NLA are. We saw from the other side an attempt to indeed broaden the scope of the functions of the board, given the minister's powers. But I want to say, Madam President, that in that section where it pertains to the powers of the minister can in no way violate the functions of the National Lotteries Authority. If the law, Madam President, did not envision that the functions of the National Lotteries Authority would be in keeping with those that are laid out specifically, then there would be no need for the legislation to be passed in this way. So, Madam President, we don't buy, and we are certainly not convinced by the attempt to broaden the functions of the NLA. The functions are clearly what they are, and nowhere in the functions of the NLA is it set out to implement infrastructure. Now, the leader of government business made it absolutely worst, because then when they got caught or get exposed without being able to impress us that they are indeed in keeping with the NLA functions, he then said to us that the programs were going to be implemented by Sports Saint Lucia, Inc. The question then arose, why didn't the government simply borrow the money or guarantee the money on behalf of Sports Saint Lucia, Inc., the government company that owns the infrastructure? Why this very messy arrangement that doesn't even exist within the motion that is put forward before us? Nowhere does it say, well, the NLA is borrowing the money and then it will transfer it to SSI. This is something...
I am trying to follow, because I am sure Senator Lee, as a legal mind, did indicate that it was quite in order of what is being proposed. So you're going back there and causing another bit of, I think, confusion. Senator Lee had placed that in his presentation. Were you in the Senate at the time? He did indicate that it was quite in order, the responsibility of the NLAs.
I didn't hear SenatorLee say that.
Well, he did, so I'd advise you to move on.
Senator Lee is a senator just like me, and he's entitled to his opinion, and I am entitled to mine.
Are you talking back at me, Senator?
I'm not talking back at you.
I am saying to you, yeah. Senator Lee, as a legal mind, interpreted the regulations, the act, and he advised the Senate that it was in keeping, and you were not in the Senate at the time. So I'm advising you that this had been done, so you can move on.
Yeah, but Madam President, I'm begging to express my opinion in this democratic house called the Senate, that my opinion is this is messy governance arrangement. Senator,
when we express our opinions, we have to be responsible. This is going on record. If a legal opinion has been given, you cannot tell me you're expressing your opinion. You're misleading here. So I'm advising you to move on.
Madam President, I thank you for your counsel. But in the interest of my democratic right, with all due respect to your counsel, I am entitled to my opinion. There's no court that has laid an official legal position in the House to say that I can't express a contrary opinion. So while Senator Lee is a lawyer, I spoke a while ago on the tourism bill and I expressed my opinion, and Senator Lee was quite in order to disagree with me if he wanted to. So I'm laying it here, this is my opinion. Notwithstanding what has been laid before, this is my opinion, as afforded to me by the Constitution, that this is a messy governance arrangement. If it is that the Minister of Finance, who has the constitutional responsibility to borrow money as empowered to him by the Public Finance Management Act, then if the minister wants to then make monies available for the construction and upgrading of playing field facilities, whether it's for the World Cup, whether it's for just in the normal circumstances, it makes better sense to me to borrow the money on behalf of Sports St. Lucia Inc., notwithstanding Senator Lee's position. I heard all the positions that have been laid here before the House, but I would love my constitutional right to express my opinion. And my opinion is, coming to the House with a motion, don't state in the motion that you are going to be transferring that responsibility to SSI is not enough detail to the members that have to debate the House. And it's in keeping, again, with the lack of details in these motions that we have come here to debate. And that is what we're saying, right? Not enough detail, not enough transparency, not enough accountability. The works have already started at Marcia on the Mindufili Park. And we don't know who got the contracts, were the contracts.
Madam President, I rise on a point of order.
What is your point of order, Senator?
I want to make reference this time specifically to the standing orders in this booklet here.
Which
44-1, which speaks to the order in the Senate and its committee. And I'm making reference to the Senator's persistent repetition and dealing with tedious repetition of his own argument or arguments that were used by other senators in the debate. And I think, Madam President, you did bring it to his attention earlier. And now, after having gotten past that, now he's going back to the same point regarding the SSI and contractors. These are arguments that were raised by his colleague, and he's now the very same thing you just ruled on. I'm just saying now, Madam President, the standing orders make provisions for that not to happen. And he's violating, as I speak, Standing Order 44-1. So I would seek your guidance in that regard.
Thank you, Senator Ferdinand. Senator Fedee, this is quite correct from Senator Ferdinand, hence my reason to ask you to move on. But if you persist, the right has been given to me to ask you to discontinue and to resume your seat, hence the reason why I keep guiding you to move on away from that. It is actually in the standing orders. So please move on with your presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. And so, it is important in this debate to also raise matters brought up here by the leader of government business as it pertains to the difference in the framework of Sports St. Lucia Inc. and NLA. Vastly different in how they are structured and incorporated. And when the member for, I was going to say the member for Soufrière, but the senator from Soufrière indicated that the functions of the NLA are quite clear, and the leader of government business went on to say SSI, I thought that that's even worse. And that then makes the point by the senator from Soufrière even stronger. The NLA is a statutory corporation incorporated by law. At least it has laws governing it. SSI is a public state-owned company, but it is incorporated like most private sector companies are. It is designed to be flexible, nimble, and to avoid the usual bureaucracies that are accompanied with central government agencies and with statutory corporations. And so it is expected in its own framework to be a lot less loose than the NLA. And so while the NLA does not have that function to do that, SSI, to implement the programs that we're talking about, to implement the programs. And my colleague here did eloquently outline the functions of the NLA. But
Madam President, I stand on a point of order.
What is your point of order,
Madam President,
Senator?
the member is continuing to mislead the House. He just stated again that the NLA does not have the authority to do that. And in response to my utterance, he did say to do exactly what Section 23 of the NLA Act has declared and was actually referred to by another senator. He is going back to indicate that it cannot be done, and it was clearly stated. Madam President, the member is trying his best to go back to the debate and to tediously repeat things that have been clarified and cleared in the Senate, and I think we should not allow that. That is grossly misleading.
Thank you for your intervention, Senator. Senator Fedee, please move on with your presentation. I'm listening, and if it happens, I will have no choice.
Madam President, thank you very much for your guidance. It looks like the leader of government business would like to write the words that I should speak. This is unprecedented in this House. Everyone has had their opportunity to express their opinion on the thing. And so if I may try to endorse a point because of its importance, I think it's within my constitutional right within the House.
Senator Fedee, you are missing the point. Section 44(1). The president or the chairman having called on the attention of the Senate or the committee to the conduct of the senator who persists in irrelevance or tedious repetition, either of his own arguments or the arguments used by other senators in debate, may direct the senator to discontinue his speech and to resume his seat. What part of this is so difficult to get? Senator, move on.
Thank you. And so, a lot has been made about this being a guarantee or this being a loan. I want to say to the members on the other side, through you, Madam President, that a guarantee, a loan, the liability is stuck with you, the person who's the guarantor. It is stuck with you. There's no escaping from this. There's no shirking of responsibility. So if you decide that you want to guarantee a loan so that I can borrow sums, then the guarantee is stuck with you. The government has to pay this money. The taxpayers of the country is left to carry the brunt of this. There's no escaping from this. There's saying that you guarantee the loan and to try to make it appear to people that somehow this is not a government debt. It is a government debt. It is a state-owned entity that goes to the government's contingent liability. And so the government there's implications here for the government's guarantee. Madam President, the Economic and Social Review has on the guarantee loans that there are $290 million.
Senator Fedee, what is your point of order, Senator Shah?
Madam President, the point made by the member opposite is misleading. The motion before us is for a guarantee. It was made clear by the leader of government business that it becomes contingent liability only in the event of default. But he is not making that point of default, and he is implying that it becomes a loan that is subject to the taxpayers of this country. This is absolutely incorrect, Madam President, and the member needs to correct that. This is a guarantee of a loan. Only if the authority fails to meet its obligations will it become contingent on the Government of Saint Lucia. And so it sounds deliberately misleading, Madam President, and I'm asking for withdrawal.
Thank you, Senator Shah. I will allow the senator to continue because he did say that there may be implications for the government. So with that said, if there is divorce in the event. So please move on.
Madam President,
no, but what you say is that
just know that I will be interrupted another 10 times before I'm finished. Because I understand that the senators on the opposite side, they're afraid of my voice telling them the truth. This is what this is. This is driven by fear. So on the, Madam President, you're in the debate as well. You want. So in the stock of guaranteed debt, in the Economic and Social Review, it says that government has guaranteed loans amounting up to $290 million. Currently in the Economic and Social Review, I think it's page 115 in that table, where it talks about the, government's total liabilities on page 115, table 36. And it says that as of 2022, there is a stock of 290.8, sorry, in terms of debts guaranteed by the government. This $80 million is going to then increase that stock from 290 to some $370 million on debt that the government is guaranteed that if something goes wrong, that it is obligated to pay on behalf of all of its statutory corporations. And I want to repeat, Madam President, for your benefit, that I'm saying that the stock of debt guarantee on the books based on the Economic and Social Review to all statutory corporations is $290 million, and this 80 takes it up to $370 million, which represents a 27% increase in total guarantees that the government would have submitted to the various state-owned and statutory bodies and various other entities. Now, this is a significant climb. This is a significant jump. And this is certainly going to take the government's own stock of debt for this financial year closer to the $600 million mark. Madam President, the question must be asked that if the NLA is borrowing this money between, if the government is borrowing this money via the NLA and the monies are going to be transferred to Sports Saint Lucia Inc., then where is the agreement between the NLA and Sports Saint Lucia Inc.? Is there such an agreement that reflects that this money is going to be transferred to Sports Inc.? Is there an MOU that is signed that the leader of government business can provide to the House to give us the comfort that what he's indeed saying is true, and this is not just something that he has made up on the fly? Because I have seen no evidence to suggest that what the leader of government business has said to us is accurate. We have been in this House before, and I remember the members of the House when the Fernwell Rochemel issue was brought to the fore, right in this House, and it was a St. Lucia Labour Party government, and the same lack of specifics, Madam President, the same lack of specifics where the members were confused as it relates to what was the real purpose of the loan, some $38 million at the time, taken by the then St. Lucia Labour Party administration. So it's important that if there is an understanding, if there's an agreement between the National Lotteries Authority that the government says that it's borrowing the money through to spend through Sports Saint Lucia Inc., then where is the agreement? Where is the MOU? Where is the document that says that this is happening? I don't think there's a document. Until I see it, I will believe it. And so far, there's been no document. You see, the members here, Madam President, have been very consistent in coming to the House, and they raise all kinds of theories. And those theories are often not supported by evidence. Theories ought to be supported by evidence. And you can't come to the Parliament and you raise all these theories for political arguments, and there's no evidence. There's no evidence to tell us. And so we would like to see, where is the agreement? Now, mention was made here today about there being a lack of alternative sports in some of the stadiums that we have built in AstroTurf. In fact, my colleague did an outstanding job in highlighting the AstroTurf facilities that we've built, and the Soufrière Mini Stadium was highlighted as one such facility of excellence. And I would like to use this opportunity to commend my colleague for the great job that he has done in Soufrière. But, Madam President, right in Soufrière, that while they said that there's no cricket or allowance made for cricket in Soufrière, I want to ask the government, what has happened to the Ruby Cricket Ground Stadium next to the Soufrière Comprehensive School? The lands that the government has acquired right there in that facility as part of the holistic development of sports in Soufrière, where the Soufrière Mini Stadium was going to focus on track and field and football and netball and those other sports, and whereby allowance for a cricket ground next to the Soufrière Comprehensive School at the Ruby Cricket Ground would have been done. What progress has the government made on this project in the last 2.5 to 3 years? That question is very important because that point came up rather forcefully. Madam President, I must have my say on the minister's account. As much as the opposition doesn't want to hear it, I must have my say on the minister's account. The letter to the then dated the 29th of May, addressed to Mr. Michael St-Catherine, the chairman of the National Lotteries Authority, is quite clear. The minister went on and he listed 3 different components of how the lottery's funds should be spent. Part C of the minister's letter, which says the minister requests, and the minister says that the funds, and I should read the whole thing so that you can get the gist of it, the following formula should be applied with regards to the allocation of funds. 1, grants and contributions to youth and sports organizations, board admin, no problem. From us. B, support to facilities, Ministry of Youth Development and Sports, support to national players for trials and special events, and the reserve fund. No problems from us. Where it gets tricky, Madam President, is when the minister says, C, the minister's request and support services. There is no way that a minister should be so involved in the finances of a statutory or a state-owned corporation. This is a gross departure and violation of good governance anywhere in the world.
Madam President, on a point of order. Madam President, on a point of order.
What is your point of order, Senator?
Madam President, the member is misleading the House. Continuous repetition of a quote-unquote minister's account and absolutely no proof to indicate that there was any minister's account. I would ask, Madam President, through you, that the member opposite kindly withdraw that statement, because he continues to mislead the people of Saint Lucia and speak of a minister's account. There's absolutely nothing in this letter or quote that you read there speaking of a minister's account. And I think it's about time we put a stop to that, because in the lower house, the minister's students said, if there's any minister's account, come and show the evidence, and the opposition fails to present any evidence. So he needs to retract that statement, Madam President.
Senators, we seem to be going around in circles this afternoon as it pertains to the minister's account. I want to draw your attention to section 37(5). No senator shall impute improper motives to any member of either chamber. I want everyone to be guided accordingly. Let us move on, Senator.
Madam President, the evidence that is before us is starkly clear. Clear. Letters from the minister, minutes of the National Lotteries. You can only impute improper motive to another member of the House when you don't have the evidence. It is in the interest of our democracy that the opposition does its job and asks the relevant question as it relates to the governance of the country. And what I'm saying here, the minister may have had very good reason to request for him to control a third of the funds from the National Lottery. Because it even goes on in the minutes to state that this may have been an accommodation error. The Director James stated that in the conversation with the minister indicated that on a minimum deposit of 200, he may agree to review this allocation from a third. A minimum of 200,000. What I'm saying is that this is a gross violation of good governance anywhere in democratic societies. And that is the point. And so when you appoint a board, Madam President, a board is responsible for the strategic, fiduciary, and financial oversight of any statutory body, any non-profit, any organization. So when ministers who are in our Constitution, we are policymakers. We are supposed to come to the House. We are supposed to pass laws. In our ministry, we're supposed to give policy direction. But we are never supposed to go in the operations and in the deep financial details of how our ministries are run, of how statutory bodies are run. We are never supposed to encroach on our boards in that manner, to tell them ever that any minister anywhere in a democratic society, anywhere in the Westminster system, is going to go into such detail to tell them as far as the finances are concerned. But Madam President, I am begging the members opposite that if they are going to continuously say that the evidence that we have provided, and all through the minutes of the National Lotteries meetings, the letter from the minister himself speaks to that a third of the funds and the members of the board, it is for the members to clarify where did this minister's account methodology or the whole concept of a minister's account, where did that come from? If they're saying that what we are saying is not the truth, then what is the truth?
Senator,
what is the truth? Senator, and provide evidence.
We are going on a path where that could have been in the lower house. In the upper house, the senators were not ministers. They were not in the cabinet of ministers with that minister. And so to be asking them to provide truth and provide evidence, I think it's a little unfair. But no, what I'm saying is, I am speaking. I'm saying, using this information to be asking questions of the senators is unfair. However, I'm guiding that this information not be used to impute improper motive against a minister or from a member from another chamber. I get your point, that it has never been done before. You're not aware of it being done before. We're not in the position in this house to be discussing and giving you information about the minister's account. It's not. And I want to know, where are you going to? Where is your trend of argument heading to as you discuss the minister's account?
Very good question. I'm very happy that you asked that question, Madam President, because we are here discussing...
And by the way, you have 15 minutes.
No problem. Madam President, that's why I love you as the chair, because you're a wise woman and you ask the right questions. Where am I going with this trend of thought? This motion has to do with the NLA. The opposition has taken very strong objection in the manner that the NLA is being governed. We are of the view that the NLA is not structured in its function and in its laws to carry out this function because of the lack of procurement or the procurement guidelines, as would normally accompany other statutory bodies. So if we went to SLASPA, for example, the Air and Seaports Authority, their procurement guidelines are very, very strong, and it is very, very clear in their legislation. The NLA does not have that. And so what we are saying now is that the NLA is not the best place for us to go and implement this initiative. And so therefore, we're showing that historically there has been questions where the violation of, or as it pertains to preserving good governance, there have been question marks against that. And that's the point we're making. We're not here to cast allegations against the minister more than what the minutes are telling us. The minutes are telling us that in 2012, that minister wrote to the board and said to them that 1/3 of the funds had to be allocated for his control. And we're saying to a minister's account, the minutes are saying. We are saying that this is a gross violation of the National Lotteries Authority's governance. Gross violation. This is not good governance. Any company, not even if I have my private company, and much was made of a company I'm affiliated with today, if I appoint a board, Madam President, with my own private money, I will never allow the board, I will never, ever, ever encroach on the board's responsibility because of their financial obligations, because of the responsibility that board of directors have for the governance of statutory organizations. That is indisputable. So therefore, much less when you come to a public or a statutory body, in a statutory body that is state-owned, an entity of the people, an entity of the state that is owned by the government, this should not be allowed. The Constitution is quite clear what the role of a minister is. A role of a minister is to set the policy. Stay out of the way and allow your board to be responsible for the financial oversight of those statutory bodies. Are we on the same page, Madam President? I hope I'm a bit clearer with my explanation. So this is what we believe, that this should not be allowed. Not for any minister. There should never be a minister's account at the Tourism Authority. Nowhere there should be a minister's account. That is not good governance. So, Madam President, we are concerned with the way that the government has done this. We are aware that the Senate does not have the authority to amend money bills. And so we cannot constitutionally ask members in this House to do anything to amend this legislation. But what we will promise them is that as an opposition, we will be writing to the Prime Minister and asking him to ensure that to this motion, before it gains assent to the Governor General, that this motion be amended so that a guideline, a provision to include proper guidelines for procurement is installed in this provision so that the people's business can be governed properly. I thank you, Madam.